Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Game Plan, a playbook for winning law firms. I'm Scott Clayson. I'm your co-host, and Joyce Bradford, as always, our esteemed other co-host. Welcome, Joyce.
Thanks, Scott. I love that. That's going to be my title. I'm going to put it on a shirt. Your other co-host.
That's right. That is sort of I suppose I could introduce that a little better. My only co-host. Um, our mission, as those who have joined us before know, with this podcast is to bring you the insights, strategies employed by winning law firms who figured out how to successfully run their firms as a thriving business and leveraging all those amazing tools that we have out there today. This 15-minute or so podcast, our goal is that by the end of the podcast, you'll walk out with a good nugget of information, at least one that you can put to action and help at your law firm. So today we're gonna stay a bit seasonal, which we've done with our last couple of podcasts, since it is the kind of the warm time of the year. Let's put it right.
Yeah, that's right.
But for a lot of businesses, actually, this tends to be kind of the slow time of year, where you may have time to reflect on where your business is, where you want it to go, and for our today's topic, believe it or not, start planning for 2023, January of 2023. So Joyce, you're an attorney. You've consulted with hundreds, thousands, maybe hundreds, well, maybe hundreds of law firms.
Minimally hundreds. At some point, I'm going to be comfortable saying thousands, but I've not counted them all yet.
Right.
We're on the path. Yeah.
So I think it's fundamentally important that, like, hey, you worn the lawyer hat as well, right? But why is now, here in the summer, the right time to start thinking about January, other than new year, new you, all of our resolutions that we don't keep through February.
Yeah, no, great question, Scott. And honestly, it's exactly what you just said, because new year, new you, new firm. It's what we say every single year, right? Every single year we say we're going to be better next year. We're going to grow more. We've got these resolutions. But the question is, how do you make those things happen? And if you go into December, if you go into January and you make your resolutions and you say, this is what's going to happen, and there's exactly zero game plan, you're never going to be able to make that change. So what we see with successful firms who have experienced growth this year is they started planning back in the summer and the fall of the previous year. They said, these are the issues that we have. This is how we're going to tackle it. This is our systematic approach to making the right choice. And this is our timeline for implementation. And without thinking about those things right now, that growth you want, those happy customers that you want, that increased wealth that you are personally trying to achieve next year is probably not going to happen.
I think, we all can agree to that. Hey, that sounds like, yeah, that's smart. I mean, sort of like we can all agree, like, we should all be eating healthier and exercising more, right? But
Sure.
where a lot of us get stuck is, where do I begin? Like, I need a plan. I need to figure out, like, what should I be doing first if I want to, have that happier, healthier law firm in 2023. Yeah. So August, let's say, what should you be doing as a law firm in August in that prep that you just described?
Yeah. So I'm going to say something that's a little hippy dippy, but that I firmly do, I believe it with my whole heart, is everyone needs to engage in a mindfulness practice. You need to understand where your personal roadblocks are and what's causing you pain. And you need to be that self-aware with your law firm too. So if you bear with me and you want to just pause our podcast for 45 seconds, dear listener, and you think to yourself, just 45 seconds, close your eyes. What is making me mad during the day? When are my clients getting mad at me? When am I having to field angry paralegals and legal assistants? When are people's emotions causing them to respond to something in the firm rather than data causing them to respond to something in the firm? You can think of a dozen examples in 45 seconds about things that have made you mad in the past week, I am sure. So pause, come back to us, and then we can continue. But honestly, that's your first step. It's a thoughtful evaluation of where you are finding yourself riled up or where you are seeing a slowdown in your process. And there are lots of different areas that we can go in and talk about this. Scott, one of my favorite though is billing, because this one is so ultimately quantifiable.
Right.
How many hours a week do you work, right? So Scott, I think you and I both know how many hours a week we work, right? And I
Roughly.
think you and I, yeah, right. I think you and I generally, for the most part, are pretty happy with where we work and how we work. And I generally think that it's a pretty fair structure that I have. The amount of effort that I put in is pretty equal to the amount that I am given by my organization. But if our listeners are working 60, 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, and they find that they're not bringing home the amount of wealth that they should, you got a billing problem, right? You're not billing enough per hour. You're not collecting enough, or you have a collections issue,
Mhm.
or you're just absolutely lowballing yourself. I mean, it could be a variety of reasons there.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, and I think there's several takeaways from what you've just started to describe. One is, and this is the phrase that leapt to mind as you were describing, taking that 45 seconds, is you work, and I've heard this phrase a million times, like take some time to work on your business instead
Yeah.
of like kind of at your business. So that
Yep.
remove yourself from the daily and step back and look at your business and like work on how it's being run instead of just doing the at stuff. So that's
Exactly.
kind of the one takeaway. The other takeaway when you talk about the billing part, especially, I mean, that's a great place to maybe start with your
Yeah.
analysis. Is I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of lawyers myself as well, and I've talked a lot of them about hourly billing versus flat fee billing and so on.
Mhm.
And I talked and I'm excited. I'm very passionate about like getting away from the billable hour and how do you do it in a profitable way, and don't be hung up on, well, I'm going to lose money because I don't know how many hours I'm going to have to spend on it if I charge a flat fee, so on and so
Right.
forth. So when I do run into lawyers that are like, hey, I charge a flat fee, I'm excited to ask them, like, how did you come up with the formula of what to charge?
Yeah.
And more often than not, I've heard, well, I charge as much as I think I can get away with,
Right.
or I just look and see what my competitors charge and I try to be a little bit lower than them. And neither one of
Mhm.
those is as far satisfactory answer to your point
No.
of,
Yeah.
am I working 7 hours a week but not seeing the results from a wealth point of view or from a
Yeah.
monetary compensation point of view?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the billing's a great place to start. What other, I think
Yeah.
it's also interesting that we're talking both internal processes and
Mhm.
external. Are your employees, are you hearing a lot from them when you think about that 45 seconds that you're
Yeah.
taking that time of like, boy, I do hear from my staff a lot that XYZ is frustrating to them, but it's also an external. I also, yeah, my clients always talk about what a pain it is to have to sign the documents the way that I send them.
Mhm.
And I need to look into that. So like, I think it runs the gamut, right?
Mhm.
From that client intake and how we're taking in our clients to
Mhm.
the very end, the billing. So
Yeah.
let's make the assumption like, okay, phase one, step one, we've done that collective, Zen moment of thinking how
Mhm.
on the business and where my real kind of bottlenecks are. Now, what's the next step after that? That's something I've done in, let's say we take all of August and we've
Yeah.
determined
Yeah.
I need to do XYZ before the start of, so I can hit the ground
Mhm.
running Jan 1, 2023. What should firms be thinking about doing next in this sort of, logical
Yeah.
process?
So I like to take my problems that I'm trying to solve and put them into buckets. Because when you can put things into buckets, you can find the right software that's appropriate for the bucket. Trying to solve every little thing separately, it creates a system of software, a system of processes, a system of just checklists that don't actually talk to one another, and it creates a whole different set of issues. So sort of high level buckets that I like to think of here is the amount of time that I'm working versus the amount of money that I'm receiving myself or I'm able to pay my employees, right? So my billables bucket, how much money am I taking in? Does that seem fair for the amount that I'm able to take out of the business, right? I also have a bucket for happy customers. And exactly what you just said, Scott, are there roadblocks when people are trying to sign documents? Are there gaps in this process when I'm trying to take someone from consultation to client to actually servicing them and getting their work product done and resolving their matter, however that happens to be. I have a separate third bucket for employee and personnel issues. Very frequently, those issues can also be solved when we handle those other roadblocks.
Yeah,
And
right.
then law firm growth, right? Because growth is not always managed, or we don't always think about it in terms of how much money we're making. Are we able to hire new people? Are we able to attract and retain new clients? Are we getting the referrals that we need here? Is our rating on Avo or whatever system we happen to care a whole lot about, is that where it needs to be? So law firm growth can be managed in a lot of ways, but those are sort of four things: billables, client happiness, personnel happiness, and then law firm growth. So you can think of law firm happiness, right? Once I get those things figured out and I can figure out my buckets, the very next step is to start the research and go into my evaluation. So let's just say all of our folks that are listening are really up to date on our podcast and they listen on a weekly basis and they're really happy, right? So somewhere in the neighborhood of August, you need to start doing your evaluation, right? Start looking at what systems are potentially going to be a good fit for you. Hire, or at least start interviewing consultants. If you have a larger firm, please hire a consultant if you have a larger firm. And start doing that very first level research.
Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt there, but
Yeah.
a larger firm means something, can mean a whole lot of different things. What would you constitute of a firm size that warrants, hey, I need to bring in a consultant who specializes in helping law firms like mine, be successful?
Yeah. So when I say larger, it really does depend on what type of service that you need, right? So let me back up and say a consultant can be extremely valuable if it is worth their time and your time to offload that evaluation and just trust what they tell you, right? If you are so overwhelmed that you don't have time to do a good evaluation, hire a consultant, even if you're a solo. If you can make it work, do it, right? I say once you get into a 50 user firm and above, you should absolutely have a consultant working for you. And maybe it's your MSP, that group that's already doing a lot of your IT work. Maybe you've just offloaded some of that initial evaluation to them. That's fine. But if you are at least 50 users, you should have someone who is dedicated to managing this process for you.
So that should happen, September roughly, and what other channels? Okay, if hiring a consultant maybe isn't like, hey, I don't have the inclination to do that. I like to do it.
Sure.
What are the other places to sort of find the solutions? Like, should it be, hey, just do a Google search, reach out to my network, go to your state bars, PMAs, all of the above, maybe? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I'd say all of the above. So, who I use, who I used to absolutely love, who people just don't take advantage of enough, is their malpractice insurance. Call your malpractice insurance. They are literally paid to give you good advice. Call them. You don't have to avoid talking to them. They're not going to raise your rates if you give them a call, but please call your malpractice insurance. That's one. Also, I encourage everyone to be part of a network. I don't care if it's a Facebook group, a LinkedIn group, whatever it happens to be part of a network. Maybe it's just an alumni group from your law firm and you want to throw it out there and say, hey guys, I am interested in software. What do I need to do? How what have other people experienced, right? That's a great way. And if you want to remain completely anonymous, don't go to Twitter, don't go to Facebook, and instead go to Reddit. There are a lot of really fantastic, incredibly active law firm, legal tech subreddits that are available to you, where you can anonymously post whatever you want to post and ask the dumbest question that you need to ask, and no one will judge you. And you'll get some really good advice from people who have, no skin in the game. They'll just tell you what they've experienced.
I think what's impressed me the most about somebody who hasn't, I haven't been in the legal sort of space as long as you have, is I'm really impressed with the support systems in place for lawyers. To me, like if you are finding it a challenge to, find the right solutions and so on, it's kind of on you, because there is really a lot of resources out there between your bar associations, these
Yeah.
really active communities that you just described, consultants, and I love the idea of talking to the malpractice insurer that you have. That's, again, they're there to support you because
They are.
your success is absolutely their success, right?
That's right.
So that happens. You've made your evaluation. It's
Mhm.
September. It's, if we want to use the analogy, this is like a recovery process. Step one, you admitted you have a problem, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
said I need help. You've
Yes.
gone and done your research on, you know where to go to look and found your help. So what should happen after that as we progress towards our hallelujah moment of Jan 1?
Yes. Okay. So you do your evaluation, you go to your support systems, you get your answer, you start having the conversations with the providers that are just your very top level providers. Folks, you are not required to go down an entire evaluation with everyone. It matters how you feel in that first conversation. It matters how they respond to the questions. If you feel comfortable that they are talking to you about your actual firm, then continue talking to them. If they're only concerned about making a sale, they're probably not the folks that you need to be talking to anyway. And I say that as someone who's done a lot of legal sales, right? And so I don't want to take sales away from anybody, but really they need to be talking to you about your specific problems that you have. Those conversations should not begin any later than the very first week in October. By the
Okay.
end of October, if we want to stay on track to have real processes in place to have a successful firm in January, by the end of October, you need to have narrowed down your solutions to your top 3 and probably your top 2, right? That's where that has to go because you need to make a decision come November. You don't necessarily have to make a buying choice in November, but by your first, second week of November, before Thanksgiving, you need to say, this is what I'm going to do. So that's a lot to cram in, guys, between August
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
1st of November.
Let's talk about, I think there's
Yeah.
2 big kind of hidden things we haven't even discussed yet when it comes to the actual purchase decision on that
Yeah.
timeline, November, December. One is the impact on your bottom line from a tax point of view.
That's
And
right.
the other one is the timing of your purchase. And you'll maybe explain why, like November, December are really good times of year to
Hmm.
purchase software and tools that will help your business. So let's start with like the implications. And I'm hopefully if
Yeah.
you're savvy enough as a firm owner to understand like, what it means, like, hey, if I'm going to make a purchasing decision November, December, what that means to my taxable income and so on.
That's right. Yeah. So everyone needs to just always maximize your deductions. Maximize your deductions, maximize your capital expenditures that you can write off at least at some rate, right? Go through and figure out every penny that you can check off of your tax statements. Part of that is making investment in software. You can say it is a capital expenditure, it's a business expense, whatever it happens to be. But there are a couple things that can happen at the end of the year. One, every software company will always give you good deals at the end of the year. That is just the way that it happens because their businesses too, and they want their bottom lines to reflect a surge of new clients at the end of the year. It's just built into the software industry. So you'll get a good deal. You'll probably be able to get an even better deal if you subscribe to an annual package versus a monthly subscription. So you can maximize your savings there, minimize the amount that you would have to pay over the next 12 months, and then write that amount off in whatever way you're going to write it off.
Right.
So it's good for you. It's good for them. It's a win-win for everyone at this point. But I'll tell you, if you start evaluating now, you can be in the best possible position to make that choice November, December. The other piece of this, Scott, and why it's important to do this now versus in January is because with every software, there's an implementation period.
I
You need
was
to pull
just,
data. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
We're on the same page, right? Well, no,
yeah.
I'll throw it back to you, Scott. What do you specifically want to talk about here?
Migration, right? I mean, that
Migration.
you can't
Yeah.
underestimate that there is a window of time for, and we can use implementation as the kind of overarching term, but it's including data migration and
Hmm.
training of staff and personnel and so on, that will always take more time than you think it might, just
Hmm.
flat out.
Yeah.
So you got to build that into this whole process so that, you might think, God, I'm signing on the dotted line and it's November 10th. That really seems super early. It's like, no, that's right on schedule. If, because of the time to analyze like what data is actually going to move over. We could
Yeah.
do, and we probably will at some point, do a whole podcast on migration pitfalls,
Hmm.
but implementation, onboarding, all of that, your staff feeling comfortable, you feeling comfortable with the new tools that you're going to be using, so that Jan 1 isn't that's not the leaping off point of like, getting into it. That's the actual, I am in the tool, I understand, and I'm using it January 1
Yeah.
at its full capacity, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah, you have to pull that data over. You have to do your training, and it always takes longer than you think it will. It always does. I like to tell people that to come to a typical SaaS platform, if migration's done in-house with a professional services team, you can have a functional system in 3 weeks, a month, somewhere in that neighborhood. You cannot do that and fully train your staff on your system in that same amount of time.
Right.
You have to have additional time on the back end once you have a built system. That's just the nature of it. So it can absolutely be challenging, but we know you've got to think about it now. We know you've got to do your evaluation. We know you have to come to a decision. We know we have data and migration. Why does it matter if we do this on January 1? Like, what's the big deal, right? And that takes us all the way back to the beginning of this conversation. Well, better you, better me, better firm, better life, right? That's part of it, but there's also the business aspect of this. When you are running your bills and you are invoicing your clients and you are tracking what you are doing as a firm, it is so much easier for you to do this if all of that data needs to come out of the same system at the end of the quarter or the end of the year. If you want to be able to have taxes that are easy to do, if you want to have reports that are easy to run, you need to be in a system at the beginning of your fiscal year. And for most firms, that just happens to be January 1.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think that we've hopefully given everybody that golden nugget of advice here, on our podcast. That's probably, time wise a good place to wrap up. We try to keep these short and sweet if we can. So a lot of action items that can be had. And I think if you take one thing away from this today, it's like, start now in thinking
Yeah.
about things, because you'd be surprised how the days get away from us. I mean, it's already almost the end of July when we're recording this podcast, right? So it's spent, maybe it's because I live in Minnesota and the summer's always short. It's like, oh my God, it's already like almost end of July, but that's sort of the point. So, Joyce, thank you as always. Your expertise, your insights are incredibly valuable. Thank you to our listeners. We appreciate your comments, your feedback, help make this podcast a winning podcast. So everybody have a great day. Thank you for listening to The Game Plan, a playbook for winning law firms, and we'll catch up to you next time. Thanks, everybody.